Hello and welcome to another update video for Archaeology Rush. It has been a busy week, and actually, you might hear that I'm actually recording from a slightly different location. I'm sure it will take me a couple of weeks just to get the sound right on this. But yeah, it's been busy. I've not got as much done because I have been moving house. And so I want to do something slightly different this video, and I just want to talk through kind of, instead of maybe going through in detail about some changes that I've made, I want to go through sort of my first session in the new house of how I worked on, like, I was jumping in, working on the game again. And so I was working on a new feature, and the first part of the demo, the Henry Pepper part of the demo, is done, right? And so I'm working on some new feature for the next chapter, which I will give a sneak peek on to the changes later on in this video. And so the main thing that I was just testing a couple of the changes, and I was running my game via the debugger. And I will boot it up now and show you the one scary thing that I noticed. So if I jump over, and you'll see it just over here. And I realized, so I was going around testing whatever feature, and I noticed that, in fact, the more, just whatever I was doing, I was eating up to 8 gigabytes now, 9, 10. I'm going to stop this now because I don't want it to get worse whilst I'm recording. But we have a problem. We have a memory leak. And the issue with that is that I don't know when this memory leak happened. And I wondered how long it had been there, because was it something new that I'd added? I can't think of anything that I've added to the world recently, the map. So yeah, I was a bit stuck. Memory leaks are famously kind of some of the hardest stuff to debug in the game development. You are just looking at what is creating more memory. In fact, I remember one of the first Ludum Dares that I worked on, that game jam game just got completely killed because of a memory leak. And I was so inexperienced, I did not know how to fix up memory leaks. But I do know that, thankfully, I have a Git repository, and it contains just all of my changes. And I managed to trace down, basically went month by month and just checked out any particular changes that I needed to check out. Like, just to check it out, did the same process, jumped in, played the game, went into the map screen, and just had a look as to whether we still had a memory leak. And I noticed that on month 3, so if I scroll down to the first 3 months ago, where I set up the first 3 rooms of the tutorial, it still existed there. it still existed there. But if I scroll down all the way to 4 months ago, and you'll see how bad my kind of commit messages are here. Thankfully, it's only me that sees them. Added waves to the map. Well, it disappeared there. So I knew that it had to be within the last 3 months. So I did some more kind of like halving the amount, seeing if it was there, and then checking out further back. And eventually I noticed that there was this one. I got to this change, renamed locations to 3D variant, and it didn't happen. But it did happen on this change. So something I added in this particular change caused this issue. So look through the changes, and it's a rename of a file. Okay, I'm using a new class here, trying to remember where I was when I got back into the kind of got back into using some of this data, like, you know, this is a change I made 3 months ago. But yeah, playable bounds. I've got a walkable area, and I renamed walkable area 3D, and notice that I've changed the playable bounds area. So it probably is something to do with it. So I jumped into the map character, and observant viewers will notice I already had the playable bounds open, but I commented out all of the uses of playable bounds area. So if I comment this out and build this, it'll fail to build, of course. But right, well, we can just get rid of all of this, and I don't know what it does. I'm sure it'll probably break the game. Yeah, we don't want this. We don't want that. So we're not interested in like fixing up the game. We'll have to add in something here just to get a return null in there. We don't want to set a bounds because we don't want setting a bounds. And right, let's see if we jump in and test this. Will we get the same issue? So we're just keeping an eye on this graph here. And we get up to 775 megabytes. And no. So it has to be something in that playable bounds. So what we can do is we can start kind of looking through what we commented out, and actually going over to our GitHub and just having a look at the changes here. Show us, and we can kind of think of, right, what from our experience do we think the likelihood is. Nothing in here particularly looks like it's going to cause a memory leak. We're not doing anything, we're not creating any more data. So like set bounds, where we're just setting, so we're just doing a bound. Now knowing C#, we're not copying this over, that'll be setting the class reference, so that's fine. We can probably get rid of that change. Discard the modified lines there. Now reset it back to how we want it. And we know that get bounds, that's not going to be creating it. And if we enable and disable movement, we're just setting that data. Well, we're definitely, if we're setting it to null, it's not going to be a problem. If we're setting that data, it's not going to be a problem. Now, at this point, I'm also just going to reactivate this so it builds. Now, if we jump in, right, so we've made some changes here. And so we're kind of A/B testing that, like binary testing that. And again, if we're looking at this, we just want to see, does it jump around? I'll move it around a little bit just to see if it gets to that threshold, and it's sticking at 775 megabytes, which is what we expect. So that's fine. Well, that must mean that the only change we have that is kind of causing this is this change here. So let's jump back into the code. That means that something we're doing here is doing it, and we are calling into a function here. So it probably is in this function. And so at this point, this is what I like to do. So we're returning a bool here. So we can probably just return true, right? Because we're just checking it. And I'll just wipe out the data there. And I'm going to save the time, and I've already been through this. So, I went through and moved this return true, sort of slowly getting more and more of the actions and building them in. And then we hit this line, and we built this line in. And what's really interesting is this isn't ideal. So it's not the greatest code that I've written, because we're doing this every single frame. This is in the process. So every single frame, we're getting the texture and getting the image. Now, this is the Sprite 3D. So I don't know how Sprite 3D is written. And as far as I'm aware, the image is just always loaded in data. And so that's fine. When I get the image, it's not a problem. But that is clear that I'm probably not using this correctly. And in fact, actually the comment or the attached data, I think this gets this from the wiki, or I might get it from the code, the code base comments. Note, this will fetch the texture data from the GPU, which might cause performance problems when overused. Avoid call and get image every frame, especially on large textures. And this texture is pretty large, which isn't great. So had I just read the function that I was using, I probably wouldn't have ran into this issue. But this is how we learn some things every day. And in fact, I will just get the latest build, and I'll jump back to our player bounds area. And so this is the fix. We only need to get this once. We know the image doesn't change. It's not going to change every single frame. So we can just cache that data. So we are trading off memory for some performance increase, but because of the fact that the GPU was using memory already, it says functionally makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that was what I ended up doing, fixing a 3-month-old memory leak. And so yeah, that was the main focus this week. Hopefully I can get to more actual development. And whilst we're here, right, so for those that are stuck listening to me, or suffered through listening to me talk about memory leaks for the last sort of 10 minutes, here is the actual thing that I was working on. So at the moment, we are in the process of switching it out so that currently it is Henry Pepper's chapter, and we will need to change that over to Lily Petrie's chapter. So to do that, we need to make sure that we can change the active character. It's currently Henry Pepper. And so at the end, you'll take your stuff over to Thoth's Temple, and then we'll switch over. So I've just activated Thoth's Temple. And so the disappearing of those items there, that is the switch over to the correct character. So yeah, we are now technically in Lily Petrie's chapter. And so yeah, we've kind of got that transition. So I'll work more on that over the coming week, and we can start work on a new chapter. I've also worked on a load of fixes for Henry Pepper's chapter and the game in general. And so I'll add those into the description and on the itch.io changes thing that I do. But yes, thank you for watching, and exciting that we get to start working on a new chapter. So have a lovely week. I've got lots of unpacking to do. So I'm going to bounce between unpacking and working on my game, and eventually we'll meet in the middle and hopefully get some more of this chapter done. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.